The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It is Friday. It is April 19th. We're so thrilled to be here with you this morning. Of course, all of our attention this morning, most of us have been glued to TV sets or radios listening as events unfold in Boston and in Texas. And our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers are with all of the first responders and their families and the people who have been in harm's way in the last 24 hours and indeed this entire week. And we like to keep it real here and acknowledge that all of our focus is a little bit split, right? Because there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and it is amazing to me how, as a country, we pull together, as a race of people, we pull together in these times of need and support people. And we've been talking all month long about compassion and action and having compassion for these families, all of those volunteer firemen who were lost while fighting the blaze in that fertilizer plant in Texas, and that community that is so torn apart in Boston, all the things that are happening there that seem absolutely unbelievable, and the loss of a police person at MIT early this morning and their family. So our thoughts and our prayers are with everyone for a swift and safe handling of all of these situations. And if we hear anything while we're on the air for the next 2 hours, we will certainly keep you mildly abreast, because we know that you have other news outlets who do a better job of handling those things. But we'll let you know if you need to put your attention on one of those. How's that for a deal? We're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about autism, because while all these other things go on in the world, autism continues to be, and our kids need help and they need support and we need support. So that's what we're here for, to be here for you. Now, normally this is when I tell you about our live feature on our page, which is still not functional, and I apologize. They're telling me that probably any minute now they're going to get it to work, but it isn't for the moment. But there are lots of ways that you can get in touch with us, and Emily's going to cycle through some of the ways that you can get in touch with us and some of the ways that you can watch the show here. You can watch it live only in one place right now, and that's www.autism-live.com. And as I mentioned, we normally have a live feature there. It is at this moment in time not functional. Welcome the gremlins. We'll be visiting the gremlins later on. But in any case, we're working on that, and hopefully we'll have that back and up and running for you. I miss it. I miss being able to talk to you in real time. And definitely by next week, we have to have that functional, because we have just too many exciting people here. But there are ways that you're seeing on the screen right now that you can get in touch with us. And while Emily is showing you that, I just have a couple of brief messages about things that are going on that I think that you should know about. We had Mariah from the Mighty Oak Autism Consulting Organization with us earlier last month, and they're getting ready to do a free webinar on Tuesday, April 30th at 10:30 Central Standard Time. And they have asked us to let you know that you can go to the free webinar, go to their website, www.mightyoakautismconsulting.com. Again, that's Mighty oakautismconsulting.com. You can sign up for their free newsletter and sign up for the free webinar there. And you can send questions beforehand. Now, remember that this is a couple who were able to recover their child from autism, and now they work a consulting service for families who have a lot going on and who say, you know, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We need help and support to figure this out and to figure it out without wasting time and money. And so Mariah and her husband, that's what they do. They're a consulting service. They will fly to where you are, help you get your kitchen set up, help you get your house set up for ABA, help you negotiate all those different things for you, get your school services in place so that you are being the ultimate of efficient and effective. Now, is that for everyone? Obviously, there are some people who need to figure it out for themselves. And of course, you know, there is a cost for that, although they're having great luck getting services paid for their services from other sources, and you can look into that. But what a great, great gift to have a family who's already been there and done that be at your disposal to help you to get through it. So that's Mighty Oak Autism Consulting, free webinar that's taking place on Tuesday, April 30th. You can sign up at www.mightyoakautismconsulting.com. Also, we get a regular newsletter from the Autism Research Institute, ARI. And they have been doing a series of free webinars. And I just wanted to take a minute at the top of the show because we haven't always had an opportunity to tell you about what they have going on. But next week, they're doing one on eating well for immune health. They really have put a great deal of attention lately into looking at autism and immunological, I think that's the word I want, issues. And we've talked about that before on the show, how many of our kids, well, first of all, we have to get our kids healthy, right? And how many of our kids have immune issues, and how many of us as parents have immune issues. Guilty as charged right here. So a free webinar next week, Eating Well for Immune Health. It's happening. It is from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time on next Thursday on April 25th. Then they have one on Monday, April 29th. It's a prenatal webinar series for those of you who are thinking about getting pregnant or are pregnant. That's on Monday, April 29th. And all of these webinars you can find if you go to I believe it's autism.com, is it not? I'm going to find that out for you. But it's if you Google Autism Research Institute, I know they have like some crazy, easy to use. You can go to Autism Research Institute at gmail.com, but their website, why it's not on here on this flyer, is unbelievable to me. But we'll find that out for you. But you can, in the meantime, Google Autism Research Institute, and you'll get it. Let me just read off some of these different webinars that they're going to do. May 1st, Raising a Sensory Smart Child. How nice is that? May 7th, Meeting the Needs of Siblings, Part 1. May 15th, Autism is Treatable with Kenneth Block, who's amazing. May 21st, Meeting the Needs of Siblings, Part 2. May 22nd, The Autism Environment Connection. May 30th, Considerations for Parents of ASD Siblings. So a lot of sibling stuff. June 1st, this was the one that I got last night, and I said, why are we not talking about this as much as we should be? June 1st, which is a Saturday, and I just couldn't be more bummed because I'm going to have to get the tape of it. I can't be there that day. ASD, Immunological and Environmental Factors. Ooh, from research to treatment. Gotta love that, right? June 4th, what does good ABA look like? A lot of times you guys ask me about things like that. June 18th, guardianship, estate planning, trusts. Very important for those of you who have older children. You really have to start looking at this before they turn 16 to get yourself ramped up and ready for when they turn 18. June 19th, environmental risks in ASD. June 27th, complementary care in ASD. July 1st, augmentative communication in ASD. July 16th, needles and nurses and labs. Very interesting. July 17th, is your child tilted? That's with Claudia Miller. We've talk to her. Amazing. If you feel like your child is having immunological issues because of environmental exposure, that would be a great great webinar to take part in. And July 25th, Nutrition and Autism Research Updates. You know, we went to the ARI conference last fall here in Orange County, and I see a trend here that they're putting more and more of their information on free webinars, which I applaud. Because in my life, I've been able to get to like 3 ARI conferences because it's hard. If you've got a child that you're trying to help at home, really hard to get away to a conference and get away for a couple of days. So worthwhile, but difficult to do. So in any case, there are those things going on. I also want to remind you as we start the show today that we are going to have some amazing experts with us today, but I am not one of them. I am not an expert in autism. I'm a parent who had a child diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, and he is going to be 10 this summer. It has been a wild and woolly ride, but one that I think we're better for. I think I can say that at this point. If you had asked me when he was 4, I just would have sobbed and said, why us? I'm not in that phase anymore because my child is doing so well. And the difference between where I was in that moment when he was about to be 4 and where I am now is that we got the very best of help and support. We got a fully funded ABA program going on in our home. It was still hard. I'm not going to lie to you. It was still really difficult, but we had that great gift. Our ABA was done by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, so if I talk about them as being heroic and miraculous, that is why, because my child speaks, my child has friends, my child talks about where and when he's going to go to college. As we were watching some of the things unfold this morning, and they were showing a map of Boston and talking about where MIT is, and my child said, Mom, isn't that the college that you want me to go to? And I said, yes. That is the college that Mommy wants you to go to. And, you know, when I was 4, forget it. When he was 4, we wouldn't have had that conversation because we were working on getting him to say words. So I want to remind you, I'm not an expert, but I'm somebody who feels very passionately about helping you to find the answers and the support and the funding and the questions, not just the answers, but the questions to ask, because I do believe that that's a large part of this journey. What question do I ask? Because sometimes that's the thing that leads to the miraculous stuff that happens. There's progress for all of our kids. If you're a new viewer just joining us, I want you to know that we know now, yes, we still have lots of questions about autism, but we now know that there are lots of things that we can do to help all of our children wherever they are on the autism spectrum. There is help and support that is able to create real progress, and that's something that we're going to talk about today with one of our experts. But we like to start every morning with something that we fondly refer to here as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and try to make sense of it in our very busy worlds to figure out how do we apply these things to ourselves and to our children in a way that's effective and efficient and creates progress. Because I don't want to just learn a bunch of terms. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure this is useful to somebody in their everyday life. In fact, I work with people that these are useful to them in their everyday life. But when my child was diagnosed with autism, the list of things that I had to do was completely overwhelming. And I remember thinking, really? And you want me to go and learn a bunch of jargon terms so that I can just talk to you people? Really? But what I quickly discovered, well, maybe not that quickly, but what I discovered over time is that if I learned what these things meant, I was of more use to my child. And at the end of the day, isn't that what it's all about? So I'm a big proponent of doing this in little small chunks, learning the jargon of the day so that you know what it means and you can help your child or help yourself. Because I know many of you who are watching are also on the spectrum, and these are things that are, but in truth, these are things that are useful to all of us. So let's take a look at our term today. It is SD. All right, so let's look at what the actual definition is. SD, a circumstance or action that precedes reinforcement. All right, what does that have to do with our kids? Let's look at our working definition. SD, what you say or do to get the child to do the desired response. We talked last week, we were defining DTT and NET. DTT, discrete trial teaching, and NET, natural environment training. So when we're sitting down to work with a child, we want to define the different parts of, we talk about the three-term contingent, that for every behavior, there's an A, a B, and a C. If you are going to sit down and you're going to drink a glass of water, the drinking of the glass of water is the behavior, but something happened before you drank the glass of water. That's your A. There's an antecedent. Perhaps it was somebody said, would you like a drink? Or you felt nervous, or you were thirsty, or somebody put the glass in front of you, but something happened, right? That's the A, the antecedent. Something happens, then you have the B, you have the behavior, and then there is always a consequence for all of the behaviors that we do. You drank the water, and maybe you felt cold, or you drank the water and your thirst was quenched, but there was a consequence for it. Maybe the water was really cold and you have a cavity and there was pain as a result. There's always a consequence of the behaviors that we do. So we call it the ABC. The antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. And when we're trying to change behaviors, like a child is engaging in a behavior, an adult is engaging in a behavior, we can manipulate the antecedent and the consequence with great effect on the behavior. How about when we're trying to teach a behavior? Can we manipulate these things? Can we manipulate the antecedent, and can we manipulate the consequence to make sure that the behavior happens more often? Absolutely. This is the neighborhood we want to be in, right? Manipulating what happens and before, so that the behavior is more likely to occur, and then manipulating the consequence to reinforce it, make sure that it happens more often when it's something we want to have happen. So the SD is the sort of it's the man-made antecedent beforehand. You're going to say something or you're going to do something to signal to the child, you do the behavior, and then I'm going to give you the reinforcement. A great, great teaching tool for us to be able to do this. But, for years when my child was getting therapy, I would hear, well, SD1 is this and SD2 is this. And I would go, what? What are you talking about? Just talk to me like a real person. Could you please? And then they would say, oh, well, we're just saying to the child, give me the card. And then the child gives the card, and then they get rewarded for it. Oh, okay. It's the thing you say or do. It's the SD, which stands for discriminative stimulus. I know. Doesn't it make you want to run around with your hair caught on fire? I don't have any to catch on fire anymore. But that's what it means. But just remember the way that it's useful to you is it's the thing that you say or do. So if you have an SD1, if somebody says, here's the lesson we want to teach the child, SD1 is saying, come here. Great. The child comes here and you reinforce them. SD2 is saying, sit down. So we're going to work up gradually, that we're teaching compliance in this instance, that you say, come here, I say, come here, you come here, you get reinforcement. Great. And when you have that, then we're going to move on to SD2. I say, sit down, you sit down, reinforcement. It's a really powerful way to begin to teach a new skill. So really important. We're going to hear the term SD if we're doing any kind of ABA with our child. And we know that ABA is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for all of our kids. So make friends with this. Just know it's the thing that you say or do to start the lesson. It signals to the child, I want you to do a behavior, and then you're going to get reinforced for it. The kids get it faster than we do. They get it, and they're like, oh, they're asking me to do something. I'm going to comply for it because when I do, my life is better. And when our kids get in that groove, man, move things out of the way because they're going to learn so much, they're going to fly. It's a powerful, powerful thing. All right. SD. We always have a question of the day for you. The question of the day, we hope you participate, answer on Facebook or email us, or you can tweet to us all week long. We've been talking about safety issues, so we want to know what safety issues would you like to work on. Yesterday we asked you, what are you currently working on? But here's the loaded question, what would you like to work on? And I said to somebody last night, it's always ironic to me. We set these questions months in advance and with no idea of what's going to happen in the world. But every parent that I have talked to this week has talked about all the fears that we have about, are our kids safe? Do they know how to respond in emergency? Do they know what to do? It brings it all up. So I certainly, we were talking a little bit about the things that we're working on right now, but it reminded me that there are many more things that I need to work on with my son for him to understand in chaotic situations what to be looking at. And another parent was talking last night with me about teaching them to be aware of their environment. She was saying that she has 3 children, none of them on the spectrum, but 2 of them are very aware of their environment and 1 not so much, and that she's constantly talking to her children about that, and that the 2 who are very aware of the environment will catch the other one sometimes and say to them, aware of your environment, get aware of your environment, because he's not tracking. And I thought, boy, that's something that I want to tighten up in my son, that a lot of times he's, got his head buried in my phone and is not paying attention to what's happening around him. And quite honestly, we all need to be very aware of what's happening around us on a regular basis. So that's something that I'm putting in my mix that I want to start working on this week. But I'd love to hear from you. What are you wanting to work on? Maybe you need some help and support. We're going to have some amazing experts joining us in just a few minutes that we can talk about how to work on some of these different things. Okay, we always have a topic of the week, and of course I've already given it away. Our topic all this week is talking about safety. Is there anything more important that we could talk about? I always talk about, it's so important when our kids are at school that they're getting a good education and they're learning and they're being reinforced. But the truth of the matter is all of that is just a hill of beans if they're not safe, right? So safety, it almost sometimes feels like it's the unwritten most important goal, but I think it's important every once in a while to go back and say, oh, no, it is the written most important thing, because progress, absolutely essential that we're making progress with our kids, but we're not going to make progress unless our kids are safe for our parts or for them. And this goes for adults as well. Safety, number 1. So we are continuing to talk about that today, and issues around that. Some of the different things that I mentioned, we're going to have great experts today. So in just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Dr. Adel Najdowski. She comes in on Fridays to do a segment we call Real Progress. We're going to be talking about mastery. That was our jargon of the day yesterday. We're talking about how do we set mastery criteria and how do we know if it's working. You remember yesterday I was saying about don't let the tail wag the dog. This is the case with mastery. So we're going to be talking about that with Dr. Adel Najdowski. A little bit later on today, we're going to be joined by Dr. Jonothan Tarbox and talking about some more safety issues. And hopefully we'll have time that usually on Friday we have either a compliance tip or a funding tip. We're hoping to get you a compliance tip today, but we also want to check in on Facebook. We haven't had much time this week to check in with you on Facebook. So we'll see how that goes. And if the live feature becomes live again, then we will also be taking your live questions on the live forum. But in the meantime, you can still call us and you can still email us, and we'll try to be tracking that during the show so that if you have pressing questions, we can get to them. And I apologize for the live feature not working. They are working on it. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Dr. Adel Najdowski for Real Progress. You won't want to miss it. Stick with us.
So basically, when we talk about how to teach safety, there are so many levels and areas of safety to teach, but we try to first start off in teaching a simpler level.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, let's say we're trying to teach the child to stay within their yard and not run out of their yard. The first thing that we're probably going to work on is inside, in a more controlled setting, teach them to stop when we say stop. Or come when we ask them to come. And then when they're successful in the structured, non-distracting environment, then we're going to take them outside to the front yard and teach them, okay, when I say stop, you're supposed to stop.
Stop. Good stopping, Jack.
We're also going to make sure that when we initially give them the instruction, we're at a close enough distance that we can help them to stop. So then they don't develop a pattern of running away when we've called them and not stopping. Right. Once they're consistently responding within a close distance, then we're going to gradually increase the distance so that they're responding from a further distance. And then we can also teach some kids that here are your boundaries and this is the area you have to stay in. Or when we go somewhere, you have to always be able to see me. and let's say, or you have to be an arm's length distance away from me. So teaching rules that the child will follow when they go out in public.
And there are so many different areas. We've been talking about escape and elopement and things like that, but, then there's also stranger danger. And that becomes a dicey thing, and that I think it's individual to each and every family. I know people who say you're not allowed to talk to strangers, other people who say you're not allowed to talk to strangers unless I'm also talking to them, if I'm talking to them. And then, of course, we have to be careful about teaching them which strangers, because if they're lost, obviously we don't want the kid who's hiding in the bush as the policeman goes by, how to recognize who in the community. So there are so many different lessons that I can think of that a child has to be taught in order to fully be able to generalize 100% of the time how to behave within a circumstance.
And we go piece by piece then. So for example, with stranger awareness, we could possibly teach it through photographs first and say, is this person a stranger? How do you know that they're a stranger? If they're a stranger, what can you do with them? Like, can you ride home with them? No. Can you accept something from them? No. Well, what if this, giving them many different scenarios, like you were saying, so that they know exceptions of when it is okay and when it's not okay. And then also acting it out as well. Yeah. So I say, I'm so-and-so, and I'm at the grocery store, and I'm offering you a sample of candy, but I work at the store, and mom is with you. So knowing when to make exceptions and when it's okay to do something versus not doing something. And then, of course, sometimes you can also set up a situation. So, for example, you tell your best friend that you're going to the store and that maybe your child's never met that person before, and they approach your child and act out something that you've been practicing. And, fortunately, because you've set it up, you know how your child might react if it actually happens.
So that rehearsing something over and over and over again is really going to be key.
It's very important.
All right.
Yes.
Safety, it's the biggest issue. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Real Progress with Dr. Adel. We're here with Dr. Adel Najdowski. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
It's such
Thanks
a thrill
for
to have
having
you
me.
here. You're looking very purple today, and it's very lovely. We really appreciate when you come in, because you have such good information. I've shared before on the show that you have been such an inspiration to me that when I first came to do the show, I needed to get even more educated about what it was we were going to talk about. And so they allowed me to have an hour every morning with you, and it was like going to graduate school, but better. It was so fascinating, and I learned so much, and it continues to boggle my mind. And I'm so thrilled that we now get to share you with the people watching, because you are a great, great resource.
I'm really
for
glad we're
families.
doing this. It's good.
It is a wonderful thing. So yesterday, our jargon term was mastery, and I was talking about it a little bit but it's a very elusive, slippery little thing, mastery, right? And mastery criteria,
Sure.
Because I want you to give me a slide rule and, have it be an if P then Q, but it's not so much that. This is part of the creative art of doing ABA, right? It's determining mastery?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the most important thing to remember with mastery is that a child hasn't mastered something unless they can do it with new situations, new people, and, different environments and so on and so forth. If they're not at that level, then it isn't even mastered anyways. You don't want to just be mastering rote responses to certain picture cards or to certain situations that you set up and you go, oh, look, they mastered this one. Of course, we're going to mark that as mastered, but keep going with a skill and keep introducing more and more targets and examples under all different kinds of lots of situations until you can introduce a new situation and they can just do it without you having to teach them. So they need to show basically that they're having generalization before they can even be completely mastered with something.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. So that was going to be my next question. So if we're saying, because mastery is, I always think of it as saying, okay, well, the child, by George, he's got it, that kind of thing. But then generalization is when they can apply it in all those other situations. So what I'm hearing you say now is that really you haven't mastered it until you've reached generalization.
Yeah, I mean, each item that you introduce, we're going to measure it, and we're going to, have some criterion in place. Like a standard one a lot of people use will be once the child can do this 80 to 100% correct across 2 to 3 sessions, let's say, right? And so let's say we're teaching them to, identify some emotion or something like that, and they can do that, and they meet that criterion. So we say, okay, they've mastered identifying happy.
Yeah.
Okay? So then now we go and we introduce, other happy examples, different people and different cards and things, and we get to the point now where we can bring up any new happy in a person or in a picture, and they can now just say happy without you having to even tell them anymore.
Okay.
If you don't have to actually go through the teaching phase, then you've really mastered happy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Then we're going to introduce, alongside all of this, we're going to be introducing other emotions too. I'm not saying like they have to have generalization with happy before you can go to sad or anything like that.
Right.
You can work on a lot of these things simultaneously. But but the whole process is they don't have like identifying emotions really truly mastered until they've reached that criterion. Like I said, maybe it's 80 to 100% correct across a couple sessions with each of the ones you've introduced, and they're doing it completely at that level with new targets that you introduce, and they're doing it for the whole concept. So now it's like all the emotions that matter for this child.
Yeah.
They can do it with. So now emotions completely is mastered.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I'm going to break it down a little bit with your help.
Okay.
Because for people who are new to ABA and this concept of teaching in this way, you're looking at your child and your child has no idea when you're happy or sad or whatever, and they have no idea when they're happy or sad, and it just seems overwhelming. Like, why didn't my child just get it?
Right.
My nephew got it. Why didn't my child just get that? Why do I have to go and teach it? And it seems overwhelming as a parent. But the one thing that was so interesting to me as a parent is that you guys really have this, stepping stone thing that first we're going to teach this, and then we're going to teach this, and then we're going to teach this. And at some point, the child gets it in the way that the neurotypical nephew that you're going, why didn't my child get it that way? Yeah. So I do want to point out that for people who are listening to us talking about this, that you think, what are you talking about? Why would you do that? It's for every frustrating moment that you looked at your child and said, I don't understand why my child doesn't get this. Right. And you feel overwhelmed and think, I have no idea then. If they didn't just get it, how do I go and teach this? And as you teach it, because there's so many things to teach, you have to know when to move on to the next thing.
Right. Okay. So let's
and that's
talk
where
about
the mastery comes in, right?
Yeah, that would be like, if we're going to stick with this emotions example.
Yeah.
Let's say you're introducing an emotion, happy, and you are working on it with the child, and you have a mastery criterion in place of, let's talk about the mastery criterion.
Yeah.
It can vary. It doesn't have to be the same, and it depends on the child.
And we should say, for those who didn't watch yesterday's show, the mastery criteria is, it's like a guideline of figuring out if the child has this skill, right?
Yeah, so it is an art like everything else. You have to be flexible and figure out what do you need to require of this particular child, because they're all individuals and they all do different things. Some children, 80 to 100% across 2 sessions is enough. Yeah. And they really get it and they never regress. So you're going to track if they regress, because after something's mastered, you don't just never work on it ever again and just assume it's still mastered. It goes into what we call maintenance phase, where we still test it like maybe, at first maybe twice a week or 3 times a week, and if they're still doing well with that, then we might reduce down to once a week and things like that, right? Yeah. Until we just are testing once in a while. If you show regression and a child loses a skill, you might start to question your mastery criteria and say, you know what, 80 to 100 is not good enough for this child. It has to be 90 to 100. Or you might even have a child where you realize across 2 sessions is not good enough, but it should be across 3 sessions. Right. Or you might even have a child where they respond incorrectly always on the very first sitting. So I sit down and I bring out my happy emotion and I ask, how is this person feeling? And the child gets it wrong. Right. And so then I prompt and provide assistance to them to learn the response that's correct that I want. And then they give me the correct response. And then now let's say I come back and I do that later on in the session, and now they get it right. And they get it right for all the rest of the time. So let's say I do that 10 times. They got the first one wrong and they got the next 9 correct.
Right. That's 90% of the time. So it fits the criteria.
Right. But then let's say that's day 1.
Right.
And then day 2, I come in and I bring out my happy stuff, and the kid gets it wrong on the first one again.
Yeah.
And then they get all 9 right. But they always do this pattern where they get the first one wrong. Interesting. This is a really good kid with picking up on my prompts.
Right.
They picked up on what it was I'm asking for. They're not attending to the real stimuli that matter.
Right.
They're just picking up on, what does she want from me?
Right.
This is what she's telling me
Jem would do this a lot, by the way. He was guilty of this. He's like, what do you want so that I can get my reward? But he wasn't really getting it.
Yeah,
he just had good, really, paying attention in the moment and good short-term memory.
Yeah, so that card right there that looks like that, if I touch it, she gives me something good. Yeah. I don't actually, it sounds like wah, wah, wah.
Exactly. It's the penis thing. Wah, 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 wah.
So,
right.
So anyways, we go, oh, wow, okay, so this is the type of child who needs some other thing added to their mastery criterion, which is first trial must always be correct.
Right.
In that formula of 80 to 100 or 90 to 100%.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
you have to do that sometimes with certain kids, but the truth is that we always get to this level where we're randomly rotating whatever it is that's the target. So if happy is my target, I'm going to not just do happy, happy, happy for 10 trials.
Right.
And get that rote responding. I'm going to bring in other things like that they already know, that they've mastered as well, and things like that. But still, sometimes they'll pick up on, this is that one thing that was kind of different that I don't already know or whatever, and she wants me to do this when
right.
You know what I mean? So
they can be tricky. I mean, they're smart in their own way, and they try to outsmart us teaching them sometimes, right? Because let's remember that the whole point is that they're working and learning to get the reinforcement. Yeah. That is their motivation, not learning. We're trying to trick them into learning, and sometimes they just try to trick us into giving the reinforcement. It's okay. It's a sign of intelligence.
Here's the thing. They're always right. Just
yes,
so you know.
And you guys say that, and as a parent, I try to acknowledge that.
Is always right. The learner is always right because they're only doing what we're teaching them.
Right.
And it's we're the ones setting up situations that end up being a little too rote or whatever that end up in that problem. Or we're the ones that are not, tailoring the mastery criteria properly. So people need to think outside the box. Don't get stuck in like a mastery criterion that I read in a book said.
Right.
80 to 100% across 2 sessions and then just be done with it. A lot of kids need more than 2 sessions. Some kids need 90. Some kids need that first trial.
Right.
So
and some tasks need more than that. We were talking yesterday, because our topic this week is safety, that 80% criteria is not going to cut it for safety. Like, we can't, I marvel at the idea that, well, I could settle for 80% of the time my son knows how to cross the street, but the other 20% of the time he doesn't. That won't work. So it really is this very flexible thing that you have to be creative with. And it really is only there to signal, when you want to move on to the next thing, and if the criteria isn't working, doesn't match, then you change the criteria, not.
And guess how you know if it's working?
How do you know when it's working?
You collect data. People don't want to do it. It's a lot of work.
There it is.
But listen, if you don't and you go with your gut, it's not going to be right. You're subjective. And you're going to say, like, I think he got a lot of those right. He's doing good. We're done with it or something, Not going to work. You've got to collect the data, and you've got to, like, get used to making little graphs and putting these dots on there and seeing them going up to 100 or 90 or whatever it is. And going, okay, awesome, he's done with that one. Now I'm introducing the next. And it's really necessary also just to show progress, and for funding agencies, they need to see that stuff.
And so that you see, because as you pointed out, if you weren't graphing, you could keep teaching and being frustrated and frustrate the child and not realize that pattern of, they managed to get the first time wrong every time, but the rest of them they get right.
And they keep regressing, and I don't know why. They just keep losing this skill. They never really had it to begin with.
And if the goal is to be effective and to be efficient, then you have to get used to the idea that you're going to graph things and that you're going to take really good data. Now, I will say this, that one of the things that we learned early on is that your data is only as good as the person who is the least good at taking the data. Right?
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate because I had therapists coming to my home from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, so they were taking data. There were only a few times that it was required of me as a parent to take data in the hours, like I had to take data on when he went to the bathroom and the diaper before we started doing the toileting. I had to take data if he was engaging in a challenging behavior that we asked to be targeted. But 90% of the time, it was not my responsibility to take data. I was working on more of the, upholding the consequences. But for those of you who are having to go this at least in part or in full on your own, you're really going to have to make peace with it. And I used to say always, I don't want to be the weakest person on the team. And the data is a big part of being on the team.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Those of you who...
There's a whole group of people who do what's called cold probe data. Have you heard of it?
No. It sounds horrible. sounds like a really terrible medical procedure. What a horrible name for something. Already I'm scared.
It's basically based off this idea that I don't want to spend all my time collecting data. I really want to know if the child knows this or not. And I'm going to come in, and my very first time I ask them during the session, I'm going to collect data only on that one time.
Oh.
And I'm not going to do it on any others because it's cold, meaning like you haven't worked on it yet.
Right.
And it's kind of like a probe or whatever. And that kind of gets at those kids who always maybe get the first one wrong and then you prompt and then they get them all right. And so it gets rid of that problem.
Yeah.
And it's like the first one of the day, which they haven't had any practice since yesterday or whatever, is your hardest one anyways. And so it's kind of a little bit of a conservative measure in that way. But it's kind of also doesn't seem like it really matches what we do in behavior analysis because we always, collect data on everything and stuff like that. But there's been some research on it, and so far the research studies are showing there isn't a huge difference at all between the two methods. So some people who just don't have the time, that's one thing they can consider.
Okay, something to think about. Okay, and so when you're thinking about changing the criteria, we've already talked about some of the different things you can consider changing. You can consider across how many sessions you're doing it, across how many people. What are some other things that you might change in the math?
You might even do across how many days, because sometimes a child has like 3, maybe even 4 sessions in one day.
Yeah.
And so if your mastery criterion is they have to do it like 80 to 100% across 3 sessions, then they might be able to get that done in one day.
Yeah.
And some kids just can't have that. They need to have at least like another day or something.
And I would think the flip would be also because sometimes they just don't have the opportunity to do something very often. They may have it, but they haven't met the mastery criteria because they hadn't had the opportunity to do it that many days in a row.
True.
So very important, though, that you know what the mastery criteria is and that you not think of it as this really stationary, written in stone
The other thing some people will say is like you want to have it mastered. That percentage that you need to have also can't just be always in the same setting and with the same person.
Okay.
So like across at least 2 settings and across at least 2 people or something like that.
Okay, great.
Right? Because kids get stuck where they literally learn like what does Adele want from me today?
Right.
What does Shannon want from me today?
Yes.
And
what can I get away with
we need to make sure
Mom?
that this will work with different people.
Yes.
And when they go, oh, we're doing it at that table, and I notice whenever we're at that table, I'm doing this thing or whatever. They're just really smart to pick up on those things.
They really are smart to pick up on a lot of different things. Okay, so key, and we're gonna take a short break. Can you stick with us for one more segment? Okay, so we're gonna come back with one more segment with Dr. Najdowski. Stick with us.
My name is Rocky.
Autism used to affect 1 in every 10,000 children. Now it affects 1 in every 91 kids.
TACA is one of 5 organizations helping families living with autism today.
Our kids came back to life. There's a whole community out there, and now we're a part of it.
Oh, TACA has a place for me.
To find TACA, go to www.tacanow.org.
Please.
Welcome back. We're here with Dr. Adel Najdowski, and you are the Director of Skills. We talk about skills here on the show a lot because I'm a huge fan of skills. I just think it's a remarkable tool. Tell the folks at home what Skills does.
Skills is basically an online program. It does assessment, and it provides curriculum, lesson plans that are directly linked to that assessment, and gives you the lesson plans that you can print out, and there's videos and data collection forms, and you can track the child's progress and so on and so forth. So the whole idea is that this is a system that figures out every single thing the child needs to learn to get caught up to their typically developing same-age peers, and provides you with those materials, and also lets you see where they're at now in relation to where they should be and where they're going with their progress. So it provides reports and things like that too.
And it does ever so much more than that. I didn't
mention challenging behavior.
Yeah.
There's a section in there for how to write your behavior intervention plans for your challenging behavior. It's basically, imagine an entire treatment management tool. So if you're doing treatment management for your child, on your own. This is a tool to help you in that process.
Yeah, and it truly is amazing. We're using this at home with Jem, and it's a brilliant, brilliant thing. I'm a huge fan of it. And from time to time, we get questions from viewers that will come in, and sometimes you get questions that we've asked you to come in and share with us for people who are using the skills program. So we had a question that came in. You want to answer the question?
So the question was whether or not there's any research on skills and what the research is. There is a published study looking at the reliability of the skills assessment. I don't know if Emily has that slide and she can put up the publication for you. So it was published in RASD, Research in Autism Spectrum Disorders, in 2011. And this study basically looked to show that the skills assessment, and specifically the language subscale, had whether or not it had reliability.
Yeah.
And it found that it had excellent test, retest, and inter-rater reliability. We're also in the process of conducting a few different studies, so those will be coming out. But in addition to those, it's a lot of little small studies on teaching individual skills using certain lessons from the skills curriculum.
Yeah.
So just this year, for example, we published one on detecting sarcasm. And another one on responding to deceptive statements. And we have one right now. I just got the email actually this morning from the journal saying that they should know the answer to whether or not it's going to be published in the next 4 weeks, but teaching children what to do when they get lost in public places.
Amazing.
And a few other things. But a lot of these things come directly from lessons in the skills program. So a lot of those are just kind of smaller type studies. But we're in the process of developing some larger scale things too, looking at how effective it is in schools, looking at validating the assessment, and those kind of things. So hopefully we'll know more. Like, we should definitely talk about it again in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely, and a great question. I'm told that our live feature is now working and available, so if you want to ask questions in live time, you can, as of right now. And I will say that if you're interested in finding out more about the skills program, the skills online program, you can go to skillsforautism.com. Is that correct, Dr. Najdowski?
Yes.
And you have the ability there to do a 14-day free trial, and there are 2 different trials that are there. Correct me if I say anything that's wrong, but there are 2 different trials there that if you want to give credit card information, you can have access to the entire program for 14 days before your credit card is charged.
Yeah, you just have to call and cancel before the 15th day.
Right, and if you don't, because there are some people who say, I don't want to put a credit card down, because you forget to do things. I've been guilty of that myself. And so if you want to check it out without that pressure, you can. You don't have access to everything, but you get a really good idea of what it is and can try it out, again, for 14 days.
The thing I think you're talking about, if you go to skillsforautism.com, you'll see a panel that says Skills Lite. I think that's what it's called on there. If you click on that, you'll be able to see portions of the skills system. So it's not going to let you see every single lesson in a curriculum or anything like that, but it gives you a really good taste.
Yeah.
And it's not based on any time limit or anything like that. It's any time you go in, you can use it.
Okay. Okay, great. So some different things, and I encourage you all to go and look at it. As a parent who has a child on the spectrum, I have found so many uses for skills, especially right now it's IEP season, and I lean heavily on it during IEP season to go in and find things that are appropriate for my child to add to his IEP and have it in the proper language. I can't even begin to describe how much time skills has saved me in that respect.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that.
And how much it has empowered me at that table to negotiate.
Gave you your armor.
It absolutely did. I said that to them. I feel like, I had armor going in that was impervious, that it's like, you can say whatever you want, but I had a picture of where my child was and what he needed and was able to put it in their language so that the playing field was leveled for me for the first time. And I say that as a former teacher who had sat on the other side of the table for IEPs. But I was, seriously, because it empowered me greatly. Awesome. And of course, we talked briefly about the BIP builder, making sure that what they're doing for your child, challenging behavior, is actually based on research, that has been shown to be effective. It's what all of our children should have, and it's your way of being able to check it using the skills program.
Yeah.
But even, can I just say, because I get so hepped up about it, it's a very exciting thing. You were just talking about the assessment, and the assessment has been shown in research to be very effective. How many parents are out there that say, I don't have a clear idea of how far behind my child is and in what areas? If the only thing you ever did was went into skills and took the assessment to get that snapshot to say, this is where my child's receptive language is, this is where my child's expressive language is, and to understand the relationship, and then how many other things does it measure?
It's funny. Before the skills system was even publicly available a few years ago, we had the assessment, and it was in Excel spreadsheets. It's the assessment that is now on the skills system. And one of our parents did it, and it gave him this amazing report where he was able to see where his child was, and he was just like blown away by it.
Yeah.
And he told so many people that it became really popular, and we had all these people signing up for and wanting this.
Yes.
And we actually had assessors going and like sitting with kids and testing them on all these items, and it wasn't even part of the skills system yet.
Yeah, it really is amazing.
And that just in and of itself, they just like to see, like, you know, what are all the things my child should be able to do right now that they are doing, and what they need to learn, so that they kind of like knew what the roadmap was ahead of them. And they were okay with that without even having the curriculum part linked to it.
Absolutely, because having that snapshot, think about it. Right now, a lot of us are thinking about, what am I doing for summer? Am I doing summer camps? Which summer camp should I do? What should I be working on? Where should I be focused on? You know, they're going to this grade next year. How far behind are we on this? What should I be working on? Right. When you have that snapshot, it makes it 100% clear that, okay, my child needs to be spending less time on motor and more time on this for summer camp. True. It's so true.
Thought about it.
So I get chills thinking about it, how it empowers you as a parent to be able to look at this and say, oh my gosh, I had no idea that my child's receptive language was higher than their expressive language. Or, oh my goodness, I had no idea that my child was this far behind in motor skills. Well, no wonder why they're having problems on the playground with the other kids, because the motor skills aren't there.
Right.
So you then get to say, I'm going to target these behaviors and these lessons. And then guess what? You have access to the lessons to do it too.
Right.
In the same place. You don't have to go get something else.
Right.
The lessons are there if you want to do it yourself.
Yep.
It's pretty incredible.
Thank you.
It rocks. You rock. Okay. Well, we have to let you go back to your life, and
it's kind of a big deal.
But so thrilled to have you here and to talk about these things. And if you have questions for Dr. Najdowski, you can send them here and we'll have them answered for you. But I encourage you to check Skills out because it's a pretty amazing tool. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to be back in just a few minutes, so stick with us.
You say hi, we say hi. Let's get wild, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman. We're here doing allergy-free cooking, and I brought my sister with me today.
Jamie Davis, thanks for having me.
A lot of people are asking about a allergy-free breakfast, and breakfast can be full of crap.
But it's full of crap and it's hard to do. We don't have time in the morning. We're in a hurry.
We're going completely nut-free. The recipe is not
personality. We can't do anything about.
Yeah, can't do anything about that. So we're going to start off first with I'm using sorghum and brown rice flour. I find the texture good, and I've added some flaxseed meal. We talked about that last time, flaxseed meal for poop. Almost every one of our kids has a poop issue. What's next on the recipe is the quinoa flakes, baking powder, cinnamon, and the xanthan gum. It brings the glutinous texture back into the flour, and often what happens with these recipes is they can fall apart. This one holds up nicely. I like it. For the folks that are egg-free, we have a ton of egg replacers. One of those can be the arrowroot starch or bringing back some additional flaxseed. So there's a lot of options to go eggless, but we're going to go egg full in this one. For sweetener, I use the maple syrup. I stay away from refined sugar. What I'm adding now is the coconut milk, maple syrup, and a little bit of the coconut oil. And we're going to add in the raisins, craisins, and chocolate chips at the end. I find that chocolate chips can coax people to eat some really amazing things. When we started, Jeff had 42 food allergies, so we had to get creative in how we cooked. So nuts were a big, big issue. What I like now is that he can tolerate so many more things after start doing this diet. So let me show you how you can deal with this sticky stuff here. You get your fingers really wet, and you can push it down. So my oven has been preheated. It's at 350 degrees. So we're going to just throw this in. Like I said, I like it around 23 minutes. And the magic oven says, I'm done. Looks like, don't you love magic ovens? They're awesome. There we go. Pops right out. The texture of these, and it's so pretty. It looks almost like a big chocolate chip cookie, but you actually made it healthy. You can be my guinea pig. Tell me what you think.
It looks really good.
Doesn't it? So the textures and the colors in there are just beautiful. So the raisins are for you, the chocolate chips are for your kid.
I can't believe it's gluten-free.
I know, right? It doesn't taste like, crap. We're wrapping up another cooking show. If you have feedback, you can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. We're, of course, on Facebook. You could go to facebook.com/autismlive. And of course, Taka Now has thousands of recipes. Join me there, and we can cook some more later on. So thanks for joining us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. That was just the fabulous Lisa Ackerman that you saw on our cooking segment called What's Left. For those of us who have children who are on special diets, we hear that a lot from other people when they say, well, what can't your child have? And you start listing it off, and then they always say, what's left? What on earth do you feed them? So that was the fabulous Lisa Ackerman. She was the founder of Taka, Talk About Curing Autism, an amazing, amazing site. And as she mentioned, they're a great resource for recipes and other things. You can go to tacanow.org and find a bunch of different things there, including how to find restaurants and menus for restaurants that are gluten-friendly. More and more things are. Unfortunately, then you have to figure out whether they're casein-free friendly, and that is a little bit tougher. Thanks to the Celiacs Association, a lot of things are gluten-free. I also wanted to mention that yesterday we were talking about, I was answering a viewer's question about what my child eats, and I mentioned that there are a line of products that are gluten-free, that there's salad dressings, and there's barbecue sauce, and there's ketchup, and there's even spaghetti sauce, and I was trying to remember what the name of it was. It is Organicville. That is the name of it. I was saying that it was Glutenville or something like that. It's Organicville. And so not only are the things organic and low or no sugar, they use agave syrup to sweeten the ketchup, but they are also gluten-free, certified gluten-free. You have to love that, and they're tasty. That was the Tuscan salad dressing, the Tuscan sun-dried tomato salad dressing that my son loves. You can put that on vegetables, and your child will miraculously eat it. And they have other flavors too. Sometimes they have things in them that don't agree with my son, but there's like a orange flavored one. And as I said, they have a barbecue sauce that's delish. And I think there's even a teriyaki sauce. So Organicville, I have to do a big shout out to them. Gluten-free and organic, you have to love it. And you can find those in most grocery stores now, not just specialty grocery stores, which is pretty amazing. They even have a spaghetti sauce that's quite lovely. So there you have it. And again, check out Taka's website, tacanow.org, for all kinds of resources. You can even find things about what to do if you're going to Disneyland, if you're wanting to order a special meal. They have articles that have been written. There's even you can request from Taka, and I had one here for the longest time. I don't know where I'm looking around my desk. But they have guides, and if you're the individual that you're working with that's on the spectrum who is younger, you would want part 1, but if they're over the age of, say, 9, you probably want part 2, and it's article after article of advice and things written by other parents who have been there and done that, giving you resources and information about everything imaginable, from how to get your child to swallow a pill to, how to ask the chef at a restaurant to make something that fits the requirements of your child's diet. So really important. And they gift those to families who are in need. I think for other families, it's just a shipping charge. So check it out, tacanow.org. And we certainly appreciate everything that TACA has done for us here at Autism Live. And I love to blubber about how they made a huge difference for me as a parent. So do use them as a resource. More and more TACA groups are springing up around the country. If you're interested in starting a group in your area, they will help you to do that. Really, really remarkable group of parents. All right. And they also will give you access to information that has to do with research and that kind of thing. You can even ask for a TACA mentor if you want somebody to help you as you're journeying through biomedical intervention or starting ABA. That is available to you as well, and that is free. So there you have it. All right, it's time now to go to the A Word. This is the amazing ongoing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy named Jack Riley as he makes his journey through autism. We joined the series today at about 9-10 months into intensive ABA therapy in his home. Jack Riley has made a tremendous amount of progress. He's playing with other people and making eye contact with them and asking them for things and saying full sentences. He is not yet making conversation, but he is getting closer and closer to it, and they just keep lengthening the amount of words that he says together, moving towards conversation. So take a look. This is the A Word.
Every month, Jack Riley's case supervisor, therapists, and parents meet to check in with one another. During clinic, they determine what skills have been mastered and what new lessons should be added.
Put the line under the truck. Where'd it go? Oh, what does that count? Under. Oh no! What sound does a lion make? Roar. Roar. Can you put the lion in front of the truck?
It's more fun that way.
Roar. Good job. Open. Open. Well, hold on. Put the lion behind the truck.
Okay, so I'm going to add prepositions. Use reference objects that has all the obvious sides, and make sure that the objects that you're using, like the reference object or the target object that has to manipulate, is not something that's too fun, because then you want him to start playing with it. So just sort of keep it neutral items.
In the lesson prepositions, they first start with on top, since Jack Riley can clearly see what's being referenced. Once he understands that preposition, they'll include more complex ones, such as underneath or behind. The reason those are complex is that the child cannot see what is being referenced.
Do you know how many Tonka trucks your dad had?
You didn't say them for him?
No. About the time I was 40, I didn't think I was going to have any kids.
And now look at you.
Look at me now.
Slow down.
Look, you gotta get 5. Good. And you can go play, okay? Sit better, okay? Look, it's a monkey.
It's a monkey.
Don't point to this one.
It's a monkey. It's a potato.
Good.
In this lesson, they are stringing together mastered labels to make sure Jack Riley remembers them all. This exercise works on his language fluency.
Oh, he did it! Here, there's a sticker.
Face. He was so proud of himself. The little half smirk. So cute.
Look, here you go.
Cracker.
Cookie.
This is gonna be a fun program. Yes. Okay, here you go.
Yeah.
Look at you.
See, can sing. Can you say, can I have the guitar? Sure. There you go. Turn it on.
What guitar?
Say, can I?
Guitar.
Sure. Here you go. Yay. There you go. Do you want more?
Purple iPhone.
You have the purple iPhone? All right, we can work with that too.
That's a bit.
What?
That's a bit.
Oh, it is an elephant. What color is it? Say, it's a. Oh, bless you. Say, it's a pink elephant.
A pink has a bit.
There you go. It is a pink elephant.
It was only 9 weeks ago when we first saw Jack Riley independently tagged with joy detention, and in that time he's become a lot more vocal. Jack Riley is needing less prompting to speak, and his speech isn't only reserved for manding, but is becoming more and more social. He wants to engage others in his experience instead of using people only as tools to receive objects that he wants.
What do you...
Why iPhone?
Can
iPhone?
Okay, say, can I have?
iPhone.
Okay, you say.
Can I iPhone?
Say, can I have?
iPhone.
Say, can I have?
iPhone.
Say, have.
Can I iPhone?
Good trying, buddy. That's a good try. Here you go. Kind of all slurred there. It's okay. So that's a new target we have in Mans. We're trying to expand his frames of asking for things because he's so good about saying I want and give me. So we want him to start asking in different ways. So Sabrina wanted us to start teaching him can I have, and then we'll expand to may I have. As you saw in clinic, she wants us to work on fluency too, and he's getting a lot better with the it's a item. I don't know if you remember like footage from like months ago when we were doing labels and all he wanted to say was the object. Like he didn't want to say it's at all. What is it? Say it's. Yeah, it's a chicken. Good job. 2 more stickers. Look.
What do you mean by language fluency?
Oh, so that when he speaks, it's more fluid. It's not like broken up, and it's not slurred either. Right? Yay! There you go, buddy. Very good. That was very good. He picked it up really fast. Still slurred, but nonetheless, still pretty good. But I guess as you can see, like through your footage, like he picks up things in like a couple trials, and he already knows it. All right, my turn. Do you want more penguin?
More penguin.
Okay. It's a pillow.
It's a pillow. It's a rip. It's a door. It's a burrito. It's a pie.
Say, it's a slide.
It's a slide.
There you go. Nice job. Thanks.
It's a potato.
Good.
It's a camera.
Good boy.
It's a toothbrush.
Good job.
It's a ladybug.
Uh-huh.
It's a couch.
Good boy. That was really good. He's really getting those ending sounds in the words. It's really good. Yeah, the way he articulates the different sounds in the words, because a lot of those words are really hard to say. It's really good compared to what it was like when we initially taught him. And I know we added the words that he can't articulate very well in echoics, and I guess that helped too. But just hearing the fluency and the way he says it is really good. I'm impressed.
But it seems like he's really trying to.
Yeah, and he makes all the sounds in the words now, versus, he'll just slur the words like before. Like, what word did he say? It was really good. I don't remember, but like chicken would have been like a slurred word. Like, I don't know. I don't even remember, but.
It's like shisho.
Yeah, but he really tries to articulate every sound now, especially the ending sounds too. Like cat and dog. Like he really tries. It's really good. A lot of progress.
What about me?
Huh?
You are so smart, Jack Riley.
Are you a bobblehead?
So lucky.
Huh? What? Whoa. What? Whoa, whoa. What? What? Say it again. Were you saying something? What? So you're a monkey? What? Okay, I'm here. What? You want to look?
Look.
See, I want to look.
I want to look.
Okay. What do you want to see? Can you sing to the camera? Wait, look at who is that?
Jack Riley.
Jack Riley? Can Jack Riley say hi? Say, how are you doing? Oh, you want to look at yourself. Come on, gonna show off.
Whoa.
Hi.
Say, I'm Jack Riley.
Jack Riley.
Welcome back to Autism Live. So thrilled to welcome to the studio Dr. Jonothan Tarbox.
It's always good to be here.
It's always a thrill to have you here. You're the head of research here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and you are also the director of the Autism Research Group.
That's correct.
I don't know why that's always such a mouthful for me to get out. But and you've got some exciting things that are going on. We mentioned a little bit last week that you have a seminar. Is it a seminar or a conference?
Workshop, seminar, whatever you want to call it. It's a one-day, all-day workshop.
And I have to say that I've been talking about this with people in my life and saying to people, you know, if you want to get to something that will be really cool, this is a thing to go to, because I think it's pretty remarkable. You're focusing on executive functions and
perspective taking.
Okay.
Yep.
Which, for any of you who have kids that are a little bit older and they're on that higher end of the spectrum, and you're always writing in and saying, what can we do for those kids? This is, you know, targeted right in that area
specifically
of
for that population.
Of good stuff to cover, because this is where if you make a leap in these areas, it's a huge leap in their progress, correct?
Yeah, that's right, because these skills, especially the executive function skills, are sort of the overarching self-management sort of type of skills that help all of us function on a daily basis. So they're you know, loosely speaking, it's what helps you sort of tie everything else together. You know? So you might have decent language skills, you might have communication skills, play skills, things like that. But then when you're put in a complex situation, especially socially complex situation, just because you know how to say what you're supposed to say doesn't mean you're actually going to do it when the time's right. You know, or just because you know how to do a math worksheet doesn't mean you're actually going to stay on task and remember to do it at the right time when there's so many other distractions and so many other things going on. And it doesn't mean that you're going to transition at the right time when all the other students do. And you know, so it's sort of the higher order ability to think about your own behavior and keep yourself on track, basically.
Absolutely. And so key and so important to success in life for anybody, whether you're on the spectrum or not, to have those good, as you guys call them, the EF skills.
EF skills, yeah.
And everybody has a different ability, you know, with EF skills. But if we all sharpen our EF skills a little bit, you know, we will all see progress in our lives. But here's the leap that I've been making this week, and tell me how wrong I am. But in looking at some of the events that have happened this week in our world, and thinking about we're sending our kids out into the world, and we've been talking all week long about safety, that EF skills where safety is concerned have got to be pretty key. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So are you thinking things like just being aware of your surroundings and keeping an eye out? And
well, and thinking about all of the people, you know, this is the filter that I have, that I was sitting there on Monday and seeing what had happened at the Boston Marathon, and my heart was going out to the people there and thinking about that and well wishes and all of that. But then I think there's a moment for all of us when we go inside and think, what if I had been there? And what if my child had been there? We were hearing all these reports from moms who had children who were there and their concerns and stuff. And so you for a second, you try to put yourself in their shoes. And I was envisioning being in that kind of a circumstance with my child and wondering, have I prepared him for those kinds of circumstances, and paying attention and knowing what to do and how to take care of himself in that situation.
Right.
And I really started to think of it as not just safety, but EF skills with safety.
Right, because, you know, we can teach kids to sort of memorize rules about safety or memorize routines about safety, and that's fine if the safety situation ends up being exactly how the rule's written, but let's face it, life is rarely like, you know, we hope it's going to be. So with the EF skills, what it really teaches you is the ability to sort of be aware, look around, observe, talk to yourself about your environment, and then adjust your own behavior on the basis of how you're talking to yourself and thinking about your environment. So rather than just, you know, rotely following some kind of script, it's how do I adapt what I know to the current situation.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong too, that there's an element of noticing, is what I'm doing working, and if it's not, persevering to find another solution, not giving up.
Yeah, exactly right. So one of the skills that we teach is called sort of cognitive flexibility in the cognitive world, but what it means behaviorally is that your behavior is not too rigid, that your behavior is adaptable and flexible. So when you're doing a particular strategy and it's not working, you don't just keep doing it. You say to yourself, hang on a sec, this isn't working, right? And then you try something different. And you know, a lot of folks on the spectrum have a real tough time with behaving flexibly. If there's a particular way that they think they want to do something, then they'll continue to do that. And not, you know, not just folks on the spectrum, folks off the spectrum too, right?
I was just going to say,
off the spectrum.
Gee, that describes a lot of us.
And so we specifically target the ability to be flexible and to change one's behavior when the environment changes. That in itself is a skill that's teachable through practice and through feedback and through multiple exemplar training.
Yeah, and just looking at even just the footage at the beginning that they were showing of Boston, that they've shown over and over and over again, of how everyone reacted in the moment and how some people rushed in to help, some people ran away, some people stood there. You know, I mean, people have multiple reactions to things, and of course we're leaving room for that because everybody has different personalities.
Of course.
But thinking about, you know, really working with our kids on those executive function skills so that we feel as parents that we have prepared them for real life situations.
And of course, it doesn't need to be, you know, a terrorist attack. It can be something really minor, like the bus doesn't show up when it's supposed to, you know, or, you know, the bus breaks down, or, you know, the schedule changes at school, or there's a, you know, well, when I was in high school, we had a chemical spill, which I don't know what that means exactly, but we all had to leave the building really fast, and nobody really knew what to do, and they had never like created rules or scenarios specifically for that, and people had to adjust and be flexible and sort of think online in the moment. And
yes, and exactly, we've had so many different instances this week where we've heard that. I was listening this morning on the radio as they were talking about when the fire had started at the fertilizer plant in Texas, that there were first responders who went and saved hundreds of lives because they evacuated people out of the homes and out of the apartments and out of the nursing homes. And, you know, really, nobody knew in that moment how crucial it was going to be and how every minute was going to count. But having our kids be prepared for that kind of thing so that they're not standing there saying, this isn't what I do on Tuesday afternoon.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and having them understand this is a safety situation and so I need to do X, Y, and Z becomes really, really crucial. So again, this fabulous day-long event, it's happening on April 29th.
In San Diego.
In San Diego. So if you live close to San Diego, or if you're interested in flying in for that, you would go to the autismresearchgroup.org.
Yep. Website, and then there's a link to our conference webpage, and it has you know, it has all the information, directions, a link to register. It's $60 for all day, and that includes lunch, and
which is pretty amazing as conferences go.
It's a good deal. I mean, we're not trying to make any money off it. We're basically, it's part of our overall plan of just dissemination. One of our major goals at Autism Research Group is to just give out information on best practices. So if we know how to do something, we know it works pretty well, and it's not that common, well, part of our mission is to get that information out there so that other behavior analysts and other special educators and other speech and language pathologists can start to incorporate some of the same procedures and try them out.
Really good. And you're speaking at the event. What is your topic? Do you know yet?
I think I'm doing the research portion on executive function. So I'm going to review existing research. I'm actually going to describe some of the studies we've done here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders and Autism Research Group, working on working memory and cause and effect relations and some other EF-related research. And then there's going to be another talk on how to actually implement this with your kids. So it's going to be focused on, okay, here's the research, here's the theory, now here's the practice. And so, you know, we're going to have a bunch of vignettes, basically, of kids on the spectrum and their challenges that they're facing at school or at home or in social situations, and how we would actually create executive function skills programs to target those particular problems.
Awesome, making it really practical. And who are some of the other people that you have speaking at the event?
Dr. Adel Najdowski is speaking also, and
we just had Dr. Adel Najdowski on the show. Amazing
and
speaker.
She's going to be talking about perspective taking. And then we also have Jen Yakos, who is one of our senior clinicians here at CARS, absolutely fantastic, amazing clinician. She's going to be talking about perspective taking as well. And then we also have Thea Davis, who is a clinician from the East Coast. She runs a great treatment provision organization out there in New Hampshire, and she's going to be talking about the application of EF skills.
And I think we're actually going to have Thea Davis on the show next Tuesday, it's looking like. That, and we're thrilled that she's here in town to do that for you and that we get the benefit of it.
Yeah, very good.
We're working that angle. That's why I was asking who else is on the agenda so that I can pull them here and have them here on the show.
Might as well.
Mercenary. But anyway, well, because we like to talk to them too. But we will have...
Thea's great. She's very articulate, very experienced, excellent clinician.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you want to check that out again, go to autismresearchgroup.org.
There's not a lot of seats left. There's limited availability, so there's probably 10 or 20 seats left.
And we see that typically when you guys do something, it sells
Usually
out.
Fills up, yeah.
Move on that if that's something that you can get to. And by the way, it's designed for practitioners, and
that's correct.
There are CEU credits.
Yeah, it's designed for board-certified behavior analysts, and so there's BCBA CEUs, but also it's designed for other practitioners as well. So it's not going to be just purely in jargony behavioralese. It's going to be practical and understandable. So it's also appropriate for teachers, social workers, SLPs, etc. Parents are absolutely welcome. They're not the primary audience, so some of it is going to be a little on the technical side. And we have other conferences we do specifically for parents, right?
Yes.
But parents, I think, will find a lot of it useful, and will be interested in what we have to say.
But I have to say, as a parent, that for years I just thought we couldn't attend those kinds of things. That you had to have some sort of credential to get there.
And that's not correct.
I'm finding out that's not the case, and that we should all go to all of these things because that's where you find out what's being done, that's working, that's cutting edge, so that you don't have to wait a year to get it for your kid.
And as a matter of fact, when most parents show up to these conferences, what they find is professionals and researchers are really happy to have parents there. Genuinely.
Yes,
They're
that's
not just
exactly
trying to be
what
polite.
I found. Yeah.
This is the population we actually want to get this stuff out to.
Yes.
And so, of course, the purpose of this workshop is to train practitioners, but having parents there is, the ultimate seal of approval, and they're the ones that should be asking for these services from their professionals. So.
Well, and not only that, I have seen that amongst all of you that have devoted your lives to this kind of work, it is a passion with all of you, and when you meet a parent who's passionate about making sure that it gets to your child, it's like you guys light up.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like Disneyland for you guys.
That's our reinforcer, is seeing parents say, wow, my kid can actually do this now. Thank you.
And we certainly found that when we went to the ABAI conference, that we were walking around with a microphone and sticking it in people's faces and saying, hey, will you talk to us? We're from Autism Live. And they were like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, I can do that. And who's your audience? And we would say parents, and they would go, oh, I'd love to talk to that. And then and they would warm up, and then I would say, yes, I'm a parent of a child on the spectrum too. And then suddenly it was like, oh, fabulous. We were so included and so taken care of, and what else can we do? How else can we help? It was really a lovely thing to see. And for me as a parent, I always thought that those people were so removed and that we weren't supposed to bother you guys.
And that's really not the case. I mean, of course, there's going to be a few grouchy old people in any field, but generally speaking,
I haven't met them yet.
Folks in ABA and in special needs in general they care. That's why they get into this field. We don't do it for the money. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
It's to help people.
Yeah, and you guys are very passionate about it. Okay, so we're going to take a break. I want to remind everybody that the live feature is supposedly live now. So if you have questions for Dr. Tarbox, you can write in now. I'm told that it is working, and we're going to come back and talk maybe a little bit more about safety, if that's okay with you.
Sounds great.
Okay, stick with us.
Every child with autism deserves a bright future.
Without further clarification, the Affordable Care Act could actually result in less benefits for individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We urge Catherine Sebelius to clarify the Affordable Health Care Act.
She can make one change, one little minor change, to make applied behavioral analysis be part of the health care plan.
By signing this petition, you are protecting the health care benefits of individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We need to make sure
that we are heard
and seen.
Sign a petition at autism-live.com.
Here's how you can show your infinite support. Create your own infinity ribbon. What you're going to do is take a ribbon that's been cut about 8 inches long, and you're going to grab one end and then twist it, and then take the two ends and join them together, and then take it together, and then I'm going to flip it around and take another piece of tape, and what I have is double-sided sticky tape. Squeeze down. You have your very own infinity ribbon.
With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite.
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 With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite. With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite. Welcome back. We're here with Dr. Jonothan Tarbox, who is an amazing researcher and resource. That's what I was trying to say. You are the head of research and development here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and also the director of the Autism Research Group, an amazing organization that I encourage you to go to their website and take a survey about the kinds of things that you would like to see research done. That's really what drives your decisions about what you do research on, which is remarkable.
Thank you.
In this world of, we see research that comes down the pike, and I find myself sometimes going, why? And always the question I ask is, what's the takeaway for us with a child in our home with autism? What's the takeaway?
And and frankly, that is most of how all science works. It's very esoteric. It's very overly detailed. It's very sort of bizarre and doesn't make sense. But it's especially frustrating in the field of autism because it's not just something that's of academic interest. It's real life for families every day. So
yeah, it is. And I do see eventually, and you guys help me to see, and when you're here, you'll point out and say, well, this is why this study is important and how it links together with other studies moving in a direction. And we have seen progress based on some of those things, but I appreciate that the Autism Research Group really puts a mind towards what does this mean to the mom in Minnesota who's got 3 kids on the spectrum and needs some help now.
That's our goal.
So I really have to applaud you for that.
Thank you.
We have been talking about safety all week long and how we teach safety to our kids, and it seems like the more we've talked about it, the more it has mushroomed, that it seems a little overwhelming to me that there are so many things to teach.
Absolutely.
And we've been talking about mastery and mastery criteria and how you might have mastery criteria for, this activity, but it's not going to apply for safety, because for safety we need to get to 100%.
Right, yeah.
And I don't know, for parents who have neurotypical kids, how they determine it, right? I haven't had that experience. But I'm thinking about, particularly, we spent a lot of years working on with Jem being able to cross the street safely. And, and he has met the mastery criteria for it, and we've tweaked the mastery criteria, and he's met the mastery criteria, and I have now let him cross the street by himself with me standing there.
All right, very good.
I don't know when we're going to get to the day where I'm okay with him crossing the street and I'm not even there.
Right, yeah.
Like, I really just don't even know what might happen.
Right.
It may be that I've been hit by a bus and I'm unconscious, so that's what allows that to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really just don't know. And I don't know how we ever trust. When are you ever done with teaching safety?
Right.
And can you ever be?
I don't have a simple answer for that, but I think, even with typically developing kids, the answer is probably never. I mean, when are you ever going to feel like your kids are really safe? Never actually going to feel that way. At some point we need to let go, obviously, and we need to not, we need to do other things in addition to worrying about our kids, but no, I don't think that any of us are ever going to really feel safe, that our kids are completely fine without us, and probably even more so when our kids are on the spectrum.
Okay. And so when we're working on safety, and we just had Dr. Najdowski on, and we were talking about, the mastery criteria and stuff. Is there any kind of, I gave guidelines earlier in the week and said that it seemed like to me the most important things to remember when working on safety in terms of, overreaching are that to rehearse. You have lots of opportunities.
Right. Yep.
To strive for generalization as early as possible, and to make sure that you reinforce all the good behaviors as you go along.
Absolutely.
So am I in the neighborhood?
Well, you just described ABA. Like good quality ABA is that, right?
So I've learned my lessons well?
Yeah, absolutely.
The student sits before the teacher and says, I got it right. Is there anything else in terms of teaching safety? Because there's all those things to learn. Are there any other guidelines that you can give us?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll elaborate on one. You said strive for generalization from the earliest time possible. I really can't overemphasize that enough. And so we actually do a lot of research on teaching safety skills. And the number one thing that makes this research the hardest to do is how to figure out how to test the skill in the real environment, right? Without the kid knowing that he's being tested and without also putting the kid at risk.
Yes.
And so, honestly, I'll say you don't know that you're done until you've put your child in that test and they've passed.
Yeah.
And so I'll describe some of the ways that we do it. What we'll do is we use what we call in research is called unknown confederates, which are just any old person the kid doesn't know. So you might have to recruit probably not a neighbor because your kid might know the neighbor, but a friend or a coworker or a nanny or just somebody that your kid is not familiar with, right? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Or ask your ABA provider to do this, right? I mean, most providers aren't going to do that, but sometimes they will.
Yes.
But in any case, there needs to be someone there who's going to be responsible for the safety of your child, who your child does not know, and who, this is the key, was never present during training.
Right.
That person can never have been present during training. If they're present even once during training, then you don't know whether your kid is just doing what was trained in the presence of the person who was there, or whether they really get it. Okay?
Right.
So let's say it's crossing the street. The ultimate test, or real-life test, we call it in ABA, is your kid is there, ready to cross the street, and you're not there. And no one who is present during training is there. Nobody. Okay?
Oh, my gosh.
But I'm not saying just throw your kid out in the street. I'm saying make sure there's other people there to ensure his safety so he can't get hurt.
Right.
But he doesn't know who they are, and he must not be able to figure out that they're observing him. So they should be looking at their iPhone, pretending to do something on their phone, but actually they're watching your kid, and they're there to make sure that he doesn't get hit by a car or something like that.
Right.
Do a few of those probes on different weeks. It can't be 2 in a row, like right in the same day, because obviously he'll start to figure it out.
Right.
It has to be totally natural, where it doesn't seem fake and weird. Like, it can't be like, oh, just go across the street. Why, Mom? Just do it. It can't be like that. You have to set it up so he doesn't get it.
Right.
He really thinks he's just supposed to go across the street. Okay?
Oh, my gosh.
And it's not just street crossing, it's anything you can think
Absolutely.
of. We've done the same thing with using the restroom in public restrooms by yourself, right? It's a little creepy, right? You need to train your kids to not go with strangers if they get approached in a public restroom. And so we've done that. Same thing. We'll get our employees who the kid has never met to be in the restroom and to basically just observe and make sure that the kid is acting safely in the public restroom.
And sometimes, I mean, we've taken part in safety protocols here where strangers have approached, where you've had a stranger approach and try to interact with the child in an inappropriate way, so that in a very safe and appropriate way.
They're not really going to do it, obviously. But yeah, right.
And the day that we had ramped up over a long period of time of what my child should do in different circumstances. I remember there was one day that we had to go into a Target store and say to the people, we're about to run a test, and we explained to Jem, and we'd rehearsed it, and said, I'm gonna walk away from you at one point in the store. You're gonna be with your therapist. It was Amy Fuentes who was with him. Amy is the person when you call the 800 number at CARD that you get her, and I've said before, she's brilliant and kind. So
she's
imagine
great,
she was with my child. They were in the Lego aisle, and I had to run away from my child when he didn't see, crying the whole time. And then she didn't, call attention to it, but then he noticed that I wasn't there, and we had told him that it was going to happen in that particular instance. So, ramping up towards it, and then he had a series of things that he was supposed to do. First, call my name, and if he couldn't hear me saying, I'm over here, then make his way to the desk and say, I need you to page my mom because I'm lost.
Yep, exactly.
Except when he did it, he got to the desk and said, "Can you page my mom because she's lost?"
Oh,
that he
that
was
is so
like, "I know
cute.
where I am. I'm
That's
not
great.
lost. She
He's not
is."
lost. He's at the desk.
Right. And I was like behind a shopping cart crying and saying, "You did such a good job." And had threatened Amy. As much as I trust Amy, I was like, "Amy, you lose him and it's over between us," right? But then the real test came a couple of months later when my husband and Jem had no idea what was going to happen. And my husband took him to a Walmart store, and there was a whole team of people who were standing there that no one was going to be with him. My
They're
husband
all observing him
and
with
Jem
walkie-talkies
didn't know.
or whatever.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. It was like something out of a movie. It was like the Inception cast that were placed in strategic. We had like a map of the Walmart. I was not allowed to be there, and my husband had to walk away, and somebody approached my son and said, you know, "Hey, do you want to come with me?" and to see how he would react. Now, I will say this. Oprah used to do this on her show on a regular basis with neurotypical kids, where there'd be like a guy in a van and he'd have puppies and kids would be walking by and they would say, "Hey, do you want to come and look at the puppy?" Or, "Oh, I need your help. This puppy is sick." Or, "I have this free candy I'd like to give away." Or they would come to the door and say something along those lines. And almost all the time, the neurotypical kids would fail.
Right.
And the parents would be watching on closed circuit TV and freaking out, going, I've told them not to do this.
So that gets to my next point. That's a perfect segue. And that is, and you said lots of practice, which is critical. But really, I want to elaborate on that. People think, especially with kids on the spectrum who have more language, higher functioning kids, and neurotypical kids, people have this idea that if you tell a kid something and they understand it or they know it, then their behavior is going to change tomorrow or next month or next year, right? But the fact of the matter is there's a lot of research to actually show that's not true. That there's actually been a significant number of studies that have evaluated safety training programs where they give the kid an hour-long lecture with PowerPoints and watch a movie. Even a police officer comes in and tells them what to do, right? And then they actually test them a week later in the real life when they don't know they're being tested, and they fail. And they'll go with the stranger, you know, the artificial stranger. And so, telling a kid and explaining to a kid whether they're on or off the spectrum is not enough if you want to make sure that 100% of the time that kid is going to perform in the way that they need to. So you got to have role playing, you got to have actual training with lots of practice opportunities in the real environment, gradually fading out all of the artificial supports until you get to that real life test where the kid can't even tell they're being tested and they still pass. That's how you know you're done.
Yeah, and Jem did. And they called me. Yes. I was actually in the middle of a radio show. So I was on the radio talking about it, saying, all right, you know, they're going to text me and tell me how he did. And he passed.
Great.
And it was amazing. And we made sure that we reinforced it. You know, Dad came back in and he had done all the right things. And it was incredible. And I was thrilled to know that he passed that because that was a really good sign. I have to say I didn't feel done. We still talk about these things. And it's been really interesting to see. Having that happen was good in so many different ways because not only did I get a little bit of an idea that, you know, what we're doing is working, but it also heightened his awareness too. I don't know that we ever told him that that was just a drill. I don't know that we did, but he behaved in a different way after that because it wasn't just this weird thing that might happen, could happen that Mom just made up. That if I walk away, he is much more in tuned with where am I, even though he's older and that imaginary leash has gotten longer, he is much more aware, I think, because somebody approached him in the store. So it had some other benefit as well.
And so usually when we're doing those last few real life tests, we actually don't tell the kid. You know, when they pass the test, and so the kid runs to Mom and says, a stranger tried to get me to go in the car. Mom says, great job, you didn't go with them. I love you. Here's a big, huge reinforcer, and that's it. That's the end of the story. We don't go to the next step and say, by the way, that was just a test.
Yeah, I don't think we've told him.
And maybe that's a little bit weird. I don't know, right? Maybe it scares the kid a little bit. But maybe they should be a little bit scared of strangers trying to take them into a van, you know? I mean, maybe that's a healthy level of fear.
A realistic level of fear. A frightening world that we live in. Certainly not the world that I was aware of when I was a child, but I would rather him have a certain amount of healthy fear than none at all.
Right.
Especially for our kids on the spectrum, because my child was fearless at a certain point. And that was more frightening.
A lot of kids are. And, just so your listeners know, we're not talking about, obsessing about all the bad things that could happen constantly in a kid's life. Of course not. We're talking about a life of positive reinforcement, happiness, and excitement, and a couple specific things that it's healthy to maybe be afraid of, which would be strangers trying to approach you and trying to get you to go with them.
Right.
So.
Well, I think it's a level of empowerment.
Yeah,
if you give your child tools, you empower them in the situation to not feel like a victim.
That's right.
And that, I'd like to think of it that way. Give them the tools, teach them. It's what we do with everything else, so why wouldn't we do that with safety?
Absolutely.
Our fears shouldn't stop us from teaching them well. All right, we're going to take another short break and come back and talk some more with Dr. Jonothan Tarbox. The live feature is working, so if you have a question, you can write in right now on www.autism-live.com. Stick with us.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet is Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism. Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet is a visionary in the field of autism, and now you get to ask her questions every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome back to Autism Live. We're sitting here and we're talking with Dr. Jonothan Tarbox, and he is the head of research and development at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. He is also the director of the Autism Research Group, an amazing organization that does research based on what people like us tell them that we want to know more about. And there's so many things running through my head right now that I want to talk to you about, because you're such a great resource for so many things.
Thank
but we've
you.
been talking about safety all this week and all the different areas of safety. We just touched on a couple of things, working on crossing the street and stranger danger, those kinds of things. But I'm just thinking about the myriads of different things, like talking about fire safety and earthquake safety, and the list must be exhaustive.
Absolutely.
And I know that here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, it seems like you guys have endless lists of things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That are in different places.
That's what we do.
So maybe if you just took a second with us, because sometimes it occurs to me that there's like something that I've been missing on the list, something that I haven't introduced because it's not on my radar. So what are some of the different things that you guys teach kids about safety?
Sure. Well, one very easy place to start is fire safety, because there's one very, very clear signal that's going to happen when there's a fire. Usually that's the fire alarm, right?
Yeah.
Or the smoke detector. And so that's fairly trainable. You just have to make the smoke detector go off when you want it to go off. And that's a perfect opportunity, or in ABA language, it's a perfect SD, right?
That was our jargon today.
Is it?
SD.
All right, there you go. It's a perfect example of an SD. So the smoke detector goes off, and then you prompt and reinforce the behavior of leaving the house immediately, okay? And, going to the designated meeting area, which might be your front lawn, let's say, okay? It becomes an SD because you prompt the behavior, you get your kid to do it, and then you give them a reinforcer as soon as they get to the meeting area. Do that several times in a row, and it becomes a very clear SD, which says, get out of the house.
Okay.
So that's one thing. Smoke detector is fairly straightforward. Other things that we've done that are a little more subtle are when hazardous situations are left out in the house. So, for example, cleaning chemicals are not something kids should play with. You'd be amazed at how many kids, when they see cleaning chemicals, if there's no one to stop them, will pick them up and start manipulating them or looking at them. We had one kid that actually tried to spray himself in the face. Luckily, it was an empty bottle of cleaning chemicals that we put out there on purpose just to see what would happen, and so it wasn't possible for him to hurt himself. But he gave it a shot, and so basically the same old stuff we always talk about, which is, explain the rules to the kid, give them lots of practice, lots of prompting, lots of reinforcement, and then fade out the prompting, make it less and less contrived, to where eventually you just leave cleaning chemicals out in the house, not real ones, empty ones that are not dangerous.
Very important.
And see what the kid does. And if they avoid them, or if they walk away from them, or if your child's vocal, they can come and tell you, hey, look, or there's chemicals or whatever, and continue to reinforce it. But then that's how you know that the skill is actually acquired. Broken glass being left out is another major safety hazard. Knives left out, and of course, obviously, I'm not telling your viewers to leave out a bunch of dangerous things. There's ways that you can contrive it. Like broken pieces of plastic look pretty similar to broken glass, so you can practice with things like that. Another one is the doorbell. When the doorbell rings, a lot of kids on the spectrum will just run right to the door and open the door without telling their parents. Right. Again, it's basically a stranger safety thing. You really shouldn't be doing that.
Teach my dog not to go to the door when the doorbell rings.
Maybe.
I'm actually working on that right now.
All right.
We're actually working on that right now with a dog that she has a piece of carpet that she has to go to and not go past, and she gets reinforced for that.
Impressive.
Well, we're not there yet.
That's going to be challenging.
We haven't gotten there yet, but that is in fact what we're working on right now. Anytime a doorbell rings on the TV, it's there's barking and commotion, and she runs to the door, and it's craziness. Yes.
Fun.
Anyway, but yes, working on the doorbell so that they don't answer the door.
Right. So again, the doorbell is a very clear SD. When the doorbell rings, the normal behavior that your kid might do already is go to the door, open the door. That's not the behavior we want.
Right.
Behavior we want instead would be go get mom or go get dad.
Yeah.
So doorbell rings, the behavior we want is go find mom.
Yeah.
Go find dad. And even if your kid's non-vocal, they can tug on your shirt or they can just tap you on the shoulder, whatever it is. But all of those are behaviors that we can train. And the way we do it is the same old way we do everything, which is have someone go outside and ring the doorbell, right? And then immediately prompt the behavior, reinforce it. Do that a bunch of times on different days, in different settings, at different times of day, and test for generalization.
Yeah. I can think about, one of the first times that before we started ABA, there was a little bit of, there was a 3-month period of time where we were getting some just general services before he turned 3. We had a speech person and an OT person, and my child was not having it. He was like, I don't know why you called me here, but I'm not having it. And so his thing was that he would always go to the door and leave. He just felt like empowered to take any door.
Wow.
And we had those fancy the child safety things. We would put 3 and 4 on the door, and there were locks on things and Velcro straps and things, because he was very ingenious about taking things apart. I couldn't, those ones that you have to squeeze the door to turn. Yeah. I couldn't open the door, and he could come over and he'd go and open the door, right? Crazy stuff. But he felt like he was entitled to every door, and we hadn't done ABA at this point. So if you looked at our front door, it looked like Fort Knox, because there were all these locks that were above, and then we would measure how high he was on a chair, because he would get to the lower ones. Craziness, right? But I remember him starting in with the speech therapist, because he just went over to do the door to leave, and she locked it so that he couldn't do that, and he went over and dismantled the lock. Didn't just unlock it, dismantled it, and was taking the door apart.
Wow.
Oh, he tried to take apart a hospital bed once. We'll talk sometime.
Wow.
Yes, and you couldn't have a flashlight anywhere near him. He would have it taken apart in 35 seconds, and couldn't put it back together.
Wow, he's going to be an engineer.
Yes, that's exactly what a rocket engineer. Yeah. And he's already picked out his office at NASA. But truly, he has.
That's really cool.
But in any case, she started working with him at that point and saying, this is my door. You don't touch this door. And that was the first time that I ever saw somebody challenge him. It hadn't occurred to me as a parent.
Right.
Because I was trying to figure out how to talk to him. It hadn't occurred to me that I could set up rules, even with a nonverbal child, to say, you're not touching this door.
Right. Well, and it doesn't feel good to you as a parent. You want to make the kid happy. You don't want to, make them upset, and, so
well, and
it doesn't necessarily come natural.
And I was stuck on all the different things about, can we get him to respond when his name is being said?
Right.
That wasn't the thing that I was putting my focus on. And yet, as we were talking about earlier in the show before you joined, you have this list of things. I'm going to work on this, and this, but safety is always trumps that.
That's right.
No matter what you're working on, safety wins. And I hadn't thought of it as something that I could take control of a different way. I just thought, okay, well, I'll just put more locks on the door, more contraptions on the door.
Right.
It didn't occur to me we could work on it.
It's actually teachable, yeah.
Yeah,
it's amazing what is actually teachable. Pretty much everything, more.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the shorter thing would be to say what isn't teachable, and I don't know what would be on that list.
Right.
And that includes our children. If there's anybody who's out there who's watching who thinks your child is not teachable, I lived in that space for a very short period of time, and that, I think, was the worst.
Yeah. It's
feeling like that.
Devastating to believe that about
and
your
it's
child.
not
And
true.
It's simply not true.
It isn't true. All of our kids are teachable, no matter where they are on the spectrum. They are teachable. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you. What else is on that list of safety things that we want to teach?
So we talked about crossing the streets.
Yes.
Earthquake safety would be nice. It's awfully hard to teach, though, without just doing the sort of lecture talking, because how do you simulate an earthquake? It's pretty tricky. So that can be a difficult one. Stranger safety across lots of different different settings is a big one. We talked about cleaning chemicals, broken glass. Animal safety can be another one. A lot of kids on the spectrum will sort of naturally play too rough with pets and may sort of, get in trouble that way. So that's another one. And again, it's just
You did some
practice.
really good research on that as well, too. And can people find that on the Autism Research Group site?
Yeah, absolutely. So if for any of your viewers that are interested in our research, if they go to autismresearchgroup.org and click on the tab that's, I'm actually blanking on it right now, but it says leadership or who we are or something like that, and it lists all of our names or some of our names on there at least, and all of our publications. And then there's an option to check off which publications you want, and then you click a button that says submit, and it'll send an email to me saying, hey, can I have a copy of X, Y, and Z publication, and I can send individual copies to individual people for educational purposes.
Great, because you did some great research on interacting with animals and how to help our kids to interact safely. I think a lot of people just assume if the child doesn't interact safely, then the dog or the cat or the turtle or whatever has to go. We're just not going to deal with that.
Right. And maybe that is the last resort, right? Better than a kid getting hurt.
Right.
But yeah, you don't have to give up immediately. Most sort of safe pet interaction play skills are indeed teachable.
Yeah, and you had great success with that. And it was one of those things, I remember talking about it with you, that when you were explaining the study to me, that I remember thinking, well, duh. But it went a level further, because there was something that you assumed was going to work that didn't quite work, and then you had to go one step further, and that's what worked.
Yeah, actually what it was we tried to block the child from engaging with the dog too aggressively.
Right.
And then we prompted the child to pet the dog nicely. Right. And we rewarded that behavior. And we thought if we do
the good
that,
behavior. It makes sense.
Right. It's ABA common sense.
Right.
Reward the good behavior, block the bad behavior. Right. And it actually did increase appropriate petting, but it didn't decrease the aggressive behavior.
Right. So the child's still petting the dog nicely and then doing the things to...
And then he'd also attack it, because when he attacked it, the dog would run away and make a loud noise.
Right.
And that was actually the source of reinforcement for the kid. Right. He kind of thought it was funny the way the dog reacted. Right. And he would actually say the word "go" when he attacked the dog. Yeah. And, again, I don't think he was trying to hurt the dog, obviously. Right. He just, that was how it was fun for him to play with the dog. So then what we had to do was switch to a DRO, which means rewarding the child only when the behavior has not occurred.
Right.
Okay, so we still wanted him to pet the dog nicely. That's great. But he would only get the reward or the reinforcer if he did not engage in the aggressive behavior.
Right.
And it worked like a charm. And we were able to fade it out completely.
You had to make the reinforcer more reinforcing than the dog's reaction.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. And we started with a very short interval. So if the child could go 10 seconds without hurting the dog, he'd get the reinforcer. Then 20 seconds, then 30 seconds. Then eventually we worked up to 10 minutes, and at that point, by the time we were there, he just wasn't doing it at all anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely key, is the idea, because I think a lot of people think, well, okay, but this isn't going to work because I can't get my child to stop doing it.
Right.
But we can all get our child to stop doing it for 10 seconds and build up from there. But you don't think of that when you're underslept and overwhelmed.
Because it seems crazy. It seems unreasonably difficult and not practical. And in the moment, it kind of is. But if you can fade it out over the course of a week or two, then you've actually made a real difference. And now you don't have to do anything anymore. So.
And we all tend to think, oh, but that's so overwhelming and I don't have the time to do that. And if I was doing it every 10 seconds and, but the truth of the matter is it's a lot like the potty training. That, it seems overwhelming and people refer to it as a potty training boot camp, right? That you take a weekend and you're going to get this under control. Yeah. But, if you can get it done in a weekend, the rest of your life is different, right? The same thing with pretty much anything else. And if your child is abusing your dog and you're thinking of getting rid of the family pet that you love, taking a weekend and saying, we're going to really target this to see if we can't make a difference for the rest of our lives. When you put it in that perspective, you go, okay, I can come up with a weekend.
And I can actually share a story that kind of jives with that perspective, that time frame. Is I was working with a man with autism and intellectual disability who was 25 years old and living in a state-run institution, and he was still in diapers, and he was pretty profoundly intellectually disabled. I mean, he had no functional communication skills. He had a significant amount of problem behavior. He hit his head against the wall frequently. He had to wear a helmet. He was a very involved case, and his staff thought he wasn't toilet trainable. They thought, well, forget it. There's nothing we can do about it. He's too impaired, basically, was what they were thinking. And we thought, well, let's take him out of diapers, let's take him to the toilet frequently, and let's reward him when he pees on the toilet, right? Within, I think, 3 days, he was having 0 potty accidents. all day, every day. All we had to do was take him to the toilet once per hour and reward him. You know, that's it.
Right.
And instead, because it seemed too difficult to do something like that, or maybe because his staff just weren't educated about toilet training procedures, instead he was basically doomed to a lifetime of incontinence.
Yeah.
Because no one took the effort to really put in the hard effort for a week to fix the problem.
Right. And I do think you're right. I think sometimes it is a lack of knowledge. We have to feel like it's reinforcing to put in the work.
Right.
And sometimes in these kinds of situations, you know, it's a leap of faith because your reinforcer isn't going to come until later on.
Yeah.
But
you know, most things worth doing in life are like that. Very, very few things that you're really proud of that really make a difference in your life produce a reward immediately. It's almost always delayed gratification, right? Whether it's exercising, whether it's going to, you know, college or graduate school, whether doing your homework, cleaning the house. It doesn't feel good to clean the house. It feels good when you have a clean house a few hours later, right?
Exactly.
So
yeah, absolutely. So difficult, but so worthwhile. I love to hear that example because I know that there are people out there who are watching who think that everybody has given up on their child being potty trained. And,
absolutely.
And we don't give up. That's just not a possibility. It's not on the list of things to do. There's a lot of other things on the list of things to do, but giving up is not one of them. Anything else, because we're running out of time here, anything else on our list of things for safety?
Well, no, but I do have a quick announcement actually for a book that was just published that we wrote a chapter in that people might find quite helpful. The book is edited by Derek Reed and others, and it's called something like Handbook of Crisis Management in Developmental Disabilities. It just came out. I think it's published by Springer. And we have a chapter on it describing home-based services. And what we did, Angela Persky actually did most of the work on this chapter. We summarized all the existing research on home-based ABA intervention.
Wow.
And we have some pretty useful tables that say when the study was published, who actually did the work, who did the supervision, how much supervision, how many hours per week, what the results were, whether it was home-based, center-based, whatever else. So it can be a really useful resource, I think, for parents who kind of need one place to summarize and understand the existing research on home-based ABA. So if they contact me for that, I can turn them on to the book. I can show them the book. If they want to buy the book, it's probably a pretty useful book. I'm not making any money off it.
Right.
We just wrote a chapter, but there's lots of other good chapters in the book too. Or if they just want a copy of my chapter, I can probably send them a PDF of just, of the information summarizing all the research out there. So they can email me at j.tarbox@autismresearchgroup.org, and I'd be happy to provide them with information.
But it sounds like the whole book would be useful to have.
Absolutely, yeah.
An amazing thing. Well, I so appreciate that. I would think that would be useful in discussing, especially for people who have children who are under the age of 5.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you, because a lot of times you're having to petition your school district to get services at home.
It would be a nice resource to just give the special ed director in your district for them to read.
Yes, with things highlighted.
Right.
What a lovely gift. The gift that keeps on giving. Well, absolutely wonderful. We're gonna take a short break to say goodbye to Dr. Tarbox, or are we out of time? Would you just keep him? I'm asking him. We have to just keep you. So I'm going to bring something up, and you can comment on it if you want. But we haven't had much of an opportunity to talk about this. We've mentioned it briefly, but from time to time we've talked about IBT here on the show and how important it is. And we're talking about the Institute for Behavioral Technology. Training, yes. Excuse me, not technology, training. So see, it's good that you're here to correct me when I'm wrong. But for those of you who want to learn more about the things that we're talking about, and I really honestly hope that that's every parent, every practitioner, every person who has autism, every teacher. So if you had an interest in watching this show, you should have an interest in this kind of training, because if you're thinking you'd like to know more and you want it in a really easy to understand format from experts in the field, you want to partake of the Institute for Behavioral Training. You've participated in it.
Yeah, I helped develop a lot of the content. Yeah.
A lot of them were shot here in the studio when we weren't in session with the show, and I've been outside sometimes listening as you guys have recorded some of the trainings and said, "Oh my goodness, I can't wait till these come out because I want to be able to watch them and own them and participate in them." So it's trainings, and some of them are very short, some of them are longer.
Yeah.
And what I love about it is that you now have the ability to pick the topic you want and just by that topic.
Right, exactly. And I believe there's a list of all the topics on the website, right?
Yes.
And so folks can sort of pick and choose, oh, I want to learn more about this particular challenging behavior, or I want to learn more about this particular skill acquisition procedure, or or this particular curriculum area, whatever it is.
Yes.
And just purchase that training. Yeah.
So if you go to iBehavioral Training, is it .com or .org? Do you know? I think it's .com. I think it's .com. And so you go there, and down the side it has different buttons that you can push for if you are a practitioner doing ABA, if you're a teacher and want to know more about ABA, or if you're a parent wanting to know more about ABA.
Right, and of course anyone's welcome to look at any of the content.
It's just
that those different tracks are specifically designed for those audiences. So the teacher track, which I think is 50 or 60 hours of training, something like that, all of the modules in there are specifically designed for teachers. So we say things like, when you're implementing this procedure in your classroom with your students, here are some tips on how to make it work.
Right. For teachers who have looked at the ABA stuff and had said, that's great, but how do I do that with 30 kids in the room?
Right.
This is the kind of thing you want to really look at.
Specifically for them.
And the trainings, what's also great about it, they're very cost effective. They start as low as $7 for a training. You have the ability to go on, click the play, watch it, take notes, rewind, go back, share it with somebody else for as low as $7. Some of the trainings, I think the most expensive one is like $35 for a longer one.
Yeah, well, so they vary a lot in duration. Some of the trainings I think are several hours. Some of them are probably 30 minutes.
Right. So you really can look at it and figure out what you want to do. Now, here's the really amazing thing is that right now for Autism Awareness Month, they're 50% off. So you can go in, and now is a great time to gift them for a teacher. Next week at our school anyway is Teacher Appreciation Week. What a great gift to give a teacher is to say, you know, here, since they're 50% off, you can give 2 for the price of 1, and say, here are 2 trainings at ibehavioraltraining.com. You can pick which one. So if you're getting lots of notes coming home saying that your child's engaging in challenging behavior and it seems like the teacher is sending them home or sending them to another room, give them the gift of how do I deal with challenging behavior in the classroom, right?
I'm sure they'll appreciate that.
Well, you know what? A good teacher will.
Right.
Because a good teacher is all about learning and wanting to learn more and to feel empowered. And if it's a bad teacher, then let's look at that and say, okay, this is not a good teacher, right? And let other people in the community know. We're towards the end of the year, so it's too late to move them, but let other people know, don't put your child in that classroom. But I think most teachers will be thrilled to get that as a gift for Teacher Appreciation Week. And it's great for you and your family. It's great to have your babysitter go through some of those trainings. So pick your topics. Those questions that you guys write in, this is something that you get to own that copy of it to share with other people, as low as $7, and really right now as low as $3.50. So go check it out. Let us know what you think of it. I think it's a brilliant, brilliant idea. And one of the people that you will see doing some of the trainings is Dr. Tarbox. So that's the level of the people who are giving those trainings. Can't say enough nice things about it. But we're out of time. I want to remind everybody that on Monday, Monica Holloway will be here. Unfortunately, we will not have Alex Plank with us on Monday because he is on set. He's working on a TV show that he's consulting that has a new character with Asperger's. That we'll look forward to hearing more about that as he can talk about it. But he will be on set on Monday. He will not be with us. But I believe it's on Tuesday that we're going to have Thea Davis with us.
Excellent.
And then you'll be back with us next Friday. So
sure will.
We'll look forward to all of that and more guests next week. I want to remind all of you that we're going tomorrow to the Autism Walk here in Los Angeles, a huge, huge event. We'll be back on Monday talking about that. If you're in the Los Angeles area, we want to encourage you to be there and come up to us. We will have some pretty visible balloons with us and say hi to us and get a hug from us and be on camera with us. We'll be back on Monday. Until then, and thank you again to Dr. Tarbox for being here. We'll be back on Monday. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.